How does The Exorcist reflect broader societal fears of body autonomy and patriarchal control? What do we make of the young girl's body as the site of struggle between male religious authority and demonic forces? The quote from the movie, "The power of Christ compels you," a phrase that embodies the absolute authority granted to religious figures within the narrative. Go ahead, Conan, you want to go first?
I mean, it's a patriarchy. Next question. Okay, so no, but like fully engaging with that, it does seem to be like it's women and usually young women. That's why it was kind of
Young innocent women.
right. Even in El Demonio, which she's at least a woman of age with some degree of autonomy. I mean, you're dealing with like Italy in this even less evolved times than they are now, and women have no rights. They're treated like chattel. Like it's the things that she undergoes. Like they literally build like a like people under the stairs, like the little lair for her to hang out in. I think there's like multiple, like she gets taken to an exorcist that rapes her. I mean, it's horrendous. Like it's horror. And I'm saying this because I know this is a movie that most people haven't seen, right? Like I'm the one that's always like, oh, why don't we do this obscure this film that nobody's ever heard of? But you have to know your history and you have to know like where things come from, because when we look, Jason, I know when we looked at that, what are the top 20 Exorcist movies of all time, to see if we missed anything. 70 to 80% of that list is from like 2 years ago, and most of them are trash. It's like, really? Like, do you think this is one of the best of all time? Have you seen a movie older than 5 years old? Like, ridiculous. So in sorry, I don't like lists. El Demonio, like, like the fact you never looking at it from a modern perspective. I don't know how it landed then, because you know the filmmaker was of a you know, Mario Bava and like all those Italian filmmakers. We wouldn't say they were noted feminists, right? Like there's always like, all right, there's this beautiful like raven-haired young lady just getting the business like the entire time of the movie, like whatever she's got going on. And I think we are in a situation where, because we do live in worldwide in a patriarchal society, that it's you know, young ladies are meant to be victims to be saved by the, you know, the pious man. Because remember, religiosity doesn't hold the same place culturally that it used to. But even in this country, right? Look at the pilgrims and stuff like that. Look at like witch burning and things along those lines. There was nothing considered more powerful than the church, and nothing considered to be more laudable than to be a man of the church in a high position that had the power against, again, this outside force of evil, which is the only explanation, because people cannot possibly have that come from themselves.
To have the power of Christ. I mean, in the Exorcist movie, the female characters in the movie, I guess we call them the female protagonists, which is Reagan and her mother, Ellen Burstyn.
Who's great. Ellen Burstyn is like so great.
I rewatched a few of these films for the show today, and I started watching the list because originally I was going to go down the 20 best exorcism films, or whatever it was called. And
no, don't do that to yourself.
I didn't have time. B, I didn't want to, and I thought, why don't we just pick 5 and have people tell us how stupid we are for the next month and a half? And I'm fine. I'd much rather have that than try to go down a list and watch all these movies. But the female characters are lost in this film without men.
Yes.
Do you see that same thing, Toure?
You know, it's funny because I was 3 years old when The Exorcist came out. It hit me and I'm a lapsed Catholic, and yet at the time, my parents, being black hippies, were basically irreligious. But then they sent me to Catholic school a few years later and put the fear of God and, crucially, the devil in me. So I still view The Exorcist through a lens of a child, at least in part, right? The visceral effect that it had on me at 3, just the commercials. I didn't see it until I was like 17, but the commercial had a huge impact on me and horrified me. So I'm going to go back to the first gender point. It is worth noting, even though I would say that I'd viewed it more as a child and the helplessness of children, irrespective of the sex of the kid. Roe v. Wade was decided at the start of 1973. Right, in January of 1973. The Exorcist came out December 26th, 1973. And thinking about some of the details of Reagan's experience, right, during possession, the way the forms of body mutilation that she engages in, let's say with the crucifix and the like. It is really quite striking, the impact that it has, or what it says about women and autonomy over their bodies. And of course, we can transition there to the priests coming to the rescue. Yeah, I mean, the rub is that one of the two priests is a competent exorcist, and the other one is struggling with his faith, right? I mean, it's going to have to be priests who come to the rescue because women could not be priests in the Catholic Church. And it's a Catholic film, and it's obviously, Blatty's Catholic, or was Catholic. The quote unquote true story that The Exorcist was based on, the possessed child was a boy. And so the fact that with the novel and of course the film adaptation, they went with the girl, speaks to the initial point. But no matter what, the people who came to the rescue by nature of who the men of God were, or the people of God were in the Catholic Church at that time and currently, more complicated for Episcopalians, were going to have to be men.
But does it? So I'll throw another movie, and it's not necessarily an exorcism movie, but it's a demonic movie. The Omen comes out, I believe, a little bit before this.
No, after.
Is it after this? It's 78.
It's more like 76 or something like that.
Okay.
The Omen.
Another film where the female character is kind of just lost, and
the mom.
Yeah. When do these female characters get some balls?
Well, is it fair to say that Ellen? Is it fair to say that Ellen Burstyn is helpless? She's advocating for her daughter.
Yeah.
In the face of a medical establishment that is committed to stiff arming her, right? And she never relents. She pushes and pushes and pushes until she gets the appropriate remedy.
I mean, you can say the same thing about Rosemary's Baby, right? It's kind of losing your sense of reality as the Mia Farrow's character is constantly being like grabbed by men by the arm and shut up, this is where you're gonna go.
Well, that one's unambiguously a window onto the patriarchal sensibilities at the time, right? The guy in Rosemary's Baby feels as much like her dad as her husband. It's really creepy.
Wasn't she dating Frank Sinatra too at the time?
She was married to Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
Wow, there you go. It wasn't even acting anymore for her.
Directed by noted feminist Roman Polanski. Yeah, but I think that, but it's also the 1960s sensibility of challenging those norms at the time too. At the same time, and like bringing out it, like cartoonishly, like look how she has no autonomy over any part of her life. These are like literal doers of evil. Like there's no
Guy daddy. At one point,
I know that's right. I forgot about that.
She eats the moose or the mouse, as Minnie calls it. She says, "Yes, daddy."
Yeah, that's
oof.
Quite creepy.
So are these movies?
I think in the exorcism genre, it's very rare to see any kind of female empowerment of any kind. But it also, and if there is, it's just sort of like, oh, this is our take. It's a girl boss exorcist. Okay.
But again, I mean,
okay, so like, how did this film's controversies around the portrayal of religion, sex, sexual undertones, and graphic content contribute, in your opinion, to its massive success?
It was the time, right? I mean, that for the original Exorcist again, I made a special point of including Il Demonio because I wanted to point out that like this genre didn't existed before that very excellent movie, and we covered The Exorcist last year with the Matthew Film Guy, and it was really interesting to put into a historical perspective because a lot of things we think of as like horror movie tropes and whatnot, it's not just The Exorcist, but like a lot of movies around that time established those is we didn't realize they were tropes at the time, and it's if there's a lot of factors involved with it, but I think as far as I don't think Friedkin was trying to make like a political statement or anything. I just thought he was freaky, and that he was not wrong about that at all.
I agree.
Well, it's a real movie though, right? I mean, like Star
Absolutely.
Wars turned schlock into a real film, right? And The Exorcist turns horror films, which I think long been on the periphery of serious films, with a couple of noteworthy exceptions, like Rosemary's Baby. It treats horror as a serious film, right? I mean, the film is a story of revenge. I watched this recently independently of this podcast, coincidentally, but the first 40 or 45 minutes, I think it's 42 minutes, is all character development. You only see Reagan's eyes roll to the back of her head and her throat
That's right.
expand at around the 41 or 42 minute mark. And up to that point, it's the mother, the daughter, the complicated or really non-existent relationship with the father, which is one of the many reasons that I would stress that Burstyn is advocating for her daughter in the face of a healthcare industry that is committed to not doing right by them or not listening to this woman. And as the film unfolds, I mean, even just thinking about the cinematography, that Friedkin, I think, began his directing career as a documentarian. And there's a realness to how the scenes are shot that pull you in. And I'll even add, there's an intimacy to this, right? I mean, I think the reason that it scared me so much as a child, I tried watching it, at 10. And the moment that Linda Blair's eyes rolled to the back of the head and the throat swelled, I was out. But it messed me up in large part because it takes place in the kid's bedroom. It takes place, in the house.
That's your safe place as a child.
Exactly. And there's a parent dynamic that was somewhat relatable as well, right, between Reagan and her mom. And so that realness to the film. Oh, and I'll add, by the standards of the day, the effects are excellent by the standards of the day. And I think most of them hold up very well.
Yes.
It's kind of, it sucks you in. And I think part of the effect, or a major source of the effect of the film in 1973 and why it had such long legs is that it is a real movie. And people had attention spans back then, and they got sucked into the human dimensions of the film in a way. Let's say, I'll jump subgenres but keep it horror. Alien Romulus, by contrast, has about 13 minutes of character development before the action begins, right? So there's not a realness to it. That's a film that's really let me look this up on Wikipedia kind of film. Let me go to my smartphone. And it's a film designed for distraction. Exorcist is about showing you life and an inhuman horror in life.